That was Mr. Nat King Cole introducing Viewpoint with that great program. And unforgettable. That's what you are. That's the best I can say. Well, we try to make Viewpoint unforgettable. Judy Busby and I work real hard to bring different guests, varied guests from not only just Lincoln and Logan County, but sometimes around the state. We're staying home this time. We have a great guest who we're going to have introduced very shortly. Kevin, you'll remember, hopefully, you'll remember, both the listeners out there remember that we always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo or two. And today I have a kind of a different one. As a matter of fact, I have two. I was in Abe's caramel corn shop the other day. That young man, Lance, and his father, Vince, and Larry, and Helen, his mother Helen, have done a magnificent job of recreating Abe's. Took that store totally apart. I don't know where in the world they stored all those things. I have no idea. But 3 weeks, something like that, I believe. We have a new store, and it is quite an eye-opener. The reason I mention that is this was an entrepreneurship thing, Timothy. No TIF money, no government money. This was all private entrepreneurship. So hats off to the Rainforest family. Good luck to them. One thing I'd like to mention is you might have noticed if you tried to eat out on Saturday or Sunday here in Logan County and Lincoln in particular, kind of difficult to find a table.
Yes,
we brought thousands of people in here from all over this central United States and even further than that for the John Wells Memorial Basketball Tourney. Kudos to the promoters and the organizers. The organization of that had to be very, very, very significant. And I was standing talking, elderly gentleman, he was about my age, in the Cracker Barrel. And I said, I'll bet you're here, Granddad, for the basketball tournament. Yes, we are. And we visited a little bit. And I asked him where he was from. A little coincidence here. And he was from Tennessee. And we got to talk about our grandkids. And I talked about Christopher and what a basketball player he'd been. And I said, and after high school, we sang to a place called MTI for technical training. It turned out the grandmother worked for Brian Huff down there in their MTI service down in Tennessee.
Wow.
Yeah, just a coincidence. But those folks did a great job of bringing those. We had one team here, maybe from further, but the one team from Nevada. That's a long stretch.
Yes.
That's really impressive. Yeah. We have a guest here. We got him out of bed early, although he said he was up to crack it on anyway. Mr. Searby is substituting for the lovely Mrs. Busby, who cannot be with us this morning.
So the not-so-lovely Mr. Searby is filling in.
Yeah. Well, Mrs. Searby would say that you're a pretty lovely feller. So let's. By the way, Mr. Searby, he's new at this entertainment game. So bear with him, Mr. Ash, and readers, listeners, please. He might stumble or fumble a little bit, because he's not been in front of the microphone very much.
Very little.
Go right ahead, Tim.
Well, it's great to be with you today, Bill, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our guest. Our guest is Kevin Bateman. He is a Logan County Board member and has been since 2009. I found out something early this morning. I didn't realize, Kevin, that you had your own barbecue sauce.
Yes, I do.
And that's in several locations, I believe.
Several locations in town and out of town, and then a couple restaurants. Doing pretty good. It's
great.
Basically a hobby that went wild. So.
Great. There you go.
Kind of ran away with you once you got into it?
Yeah, I burned up a few blenders and stuff in my own kitchen, and then had to get to where I had to hire an outside firm to bottle it and make it for me.
Oh, is that right?
Great.
Yeah. Country Bob's in Centralia, Illinois is my co-packer.
That's your old stomping ground.
It certainly is.
Everything is made right here in Illinois, including the bottles.
Great.
So
that's wonderful.
It's a all natural product. I'm gluten free. I use nothing but the best ingredients. So it's pretty good stuff. It's multiple use, and
Kevin, how did you find your firm that does this for you off-site down in Centralia? How'd you locate them?
Just started the research on co-packers, reached out to a fellow Lincolnite, Brad Luckhart. He has his own barbecue sauce. He gave me the name of his company. I contacted them and contacted a couple others. And when I found out that Country Bob's is a good Christian family-owned business, and then they explained that all their products are in-house, bottles and all. It was very important to me to do something like that, and spend a little extra money to ensure the people that everything is made right here in Illinois. So when I say I'm an Illinois product, it's Illinois product. So that was important to me more than any expansion or money that can be made off of it.
You just kind of backed into the West in a way.
Yes, I did.
You want to explain that? Kind of take a step with us on that.
It just a lot of research, internet research and phone calls, and just got the ball rolling, decided to make a decision. Then it becomes the real work, because at that point, what people don't realize is you have to send samples off to the FDA and get all that approved, and then they come up with the calorie count and your ingredients, and all that has to be confirmed, and then you have to buy barcodes. It's a minimum of 10, so I own 10 barcodes that can be used across the nation. So you do all that, and then you have to design a label and everything. And luckily for me, my nephew was studying graphic arts at Eastern Illinois, and he was a big Lincoln fan. His grandfather was Harry Hahn. I don't know if you remember Harry Hahn, who played Abraham Lincoln. So we bounced around some names, and believe it or not, I was in Abe's Caramel Corn, and Helen Rainforth is the one that inspired me to do the shush symbol for Lincoln's secret sauce. I told her this a story about someone at one of the events I was doing barbecue. At the end of the table, I was trying to come up with a name, and I heard someone say, "Gee, Kevin, you're like Lincoln's little secret with this sauce of yours." So that inspired the name, and then trying to come up with a label, talking with her, and that came about, and then send those ideas to my nephew. And believe it or not, the label that is on the bottle was, I believe it was only his second attempt, and that was a winner. If you notice, he's holding his top hat in one hand, and there's actually a bottle of sauce in his top hat. So then that became the story of, that's why Abe wore a top hat. He just carried that bottle of sauce around all the time. So did I ever think it was going to become nationwide? No. Again, it was a hobby that's gone wild. It's paid for itself. We're not getting rich by no means, but it's not costing us.
Who
money.
knows? You may. 648-5510. Somebody might have a question. Kevin Bateman is here with us. We're going to talk about county government, the courthouse, and all that, the courthouse dome. That's really why we brought Kevin aboard. But we kind of branched off into this because it's kind of interesting that this so-called sideline of yours has become a lot more than a sideline. Now, did our overworked an underpaid city clerk, Mrs. Bateman, encourage you as you're messing up her kitchen?
I don't know if I would call it encouragement, but I was making a lot of mess.
I'm sure
it's a mustard-based sauce, so not only was I ruining blenders, mustard stains everything. You can tell everything I used to make the sauce was yellowish in color time I got done. So
now is your product on any grocery store shelves?
Here in town, I'm at Kroger's, I'm at IGA, I'm at Hy-Vee in Springfield, a couple of little specialty shops. Like I said, a couple restaurants use it as either a table item or in recipes. Robert's Seafood carries it in Springfield. It's excellent on fish. It is unbelievable on fish.
Robbie Roberts is a very nice gentleman. We got to bring him up. We had him up a long time ago, Tim, Judy and I did. We got to bring him back. Very nice gentleman. Super place. Now, your product is being made down in Centralia then?
Correct.
How do you, what control over that do you have?
I have total control over it. They have first right to buy the recipe. Other than that, I just call them up and tell them how much product I need at the time. And I like to keep fresh product all the time, so I don't buy large bulk quantities. I would rather spend a little bit extra in making small batches so everybody's got fresh product. I mean, I can lower my cost by bulk. Don't feel like doing that. Again, this is a hobby gone wild. It's something I do for people that like the product. In 2016, I entered the American Royal competition, which is the biggest barbecue competition in the nation. In 2016, I was ranked the 6th barbecue sauce in Illinois and the 40th in the world.
Is that right?
So
Good.
that was 6th in the United States, excuse me. 6th in the United States, 40th in the world. Guy Fieri, you might have seen him on the Food Network. He was 350th. So.
Wow. Whoa. Yeah. There we go. I don't know how we segue from this to the dome.
No, how
Can
we
you
gonna-
work that out?
We'll have to. We better get on the courthouse business.
That's right.
But
I think we should.
I find this fascinating. Real quickly, the bottles. What size of the containers do they come in? How many ounces?
They're 16-ounce bottles.
16-ounce bottles.
I should have brought you guys some. I'm giving it away all the time.
My first introduction to glass bottles. A quick aside, if you allow me.
Go right ahead.
I'm not sure the date. I think it's 39 or 41. We brought the Knox Glass people, which is now the Glass Container on North Logan Street there. And that was all brand new. And a fellow named Dean Harris and some other movers and shakers and making, were prominent in promoting and getting it established here. And it was a new factory. It was a big one. And they were looking for some kids to do mechanical work. They didn't have to think about it. Kevin Bateman just told these kids what to do. And so 5 or 6 of us high school boys went to work out there on a given day during the summer to put together whatever they told us to do, just mechanical stuff, simple. We worked in the morning. We took a break at noon and came back, and the gate was locked. Joe Lorman was a union boss here in town, and he got wind of these kids working out there, and he says, that ain't going to happen. And he locked the gate, so we had 4 hours of work for Knox Glass Company, and that was it. That was my introduction. I'd read about unions, but that was the first introduction. Okay, seriously, we're here to talk about many things in Logan County, but primarily, as everybody who reads the news and listens to Mr. Ash here, who does it always every day. How many hours a day you put in there, Jim?
A couple.
Lord knows a couple, yeah. He gets here at the crack of dawn and leaves at the crack of night. Anyway, the courthouse dome was a magnificent thing, pretty thing. It became a problem. So let's take it from there, Kevin. What happened when they discovered that crack? Or cracks?
Well, the original dome, dedicated in 1905, the dome was copper clad. In the early 70s, it developed some small leaks or whatever, and a firm, RL High, was hired to put a coating on it, which is what you see today. They put a roofing coating, like a thick paint on it, and painted it. That was in the early 70s. It had a 20-year warranty. We have all the paperwork and everything at the courthouse that shows that, very detailed. Well, obviously, we're well past the 20-year warranty. It's developed some leaks, and on the inside, during that same time, they sprayed what we're going to call a shotcrete material on the inside of the dome that to help protect it. It was a fireproof material and stuff. And so over time, we now have leaks again, some pretty significant ones. Well, Illinois, it gets hot in the summertime and cold in the winter. So when that water gets in there and freeze and thaw, well, that is what's caused the shotcrete to start coming loose in bigger and bigger pieces. That, and we have a hole that some pigeons get into, but that's minute. Those are little pebbles. Well, I didn't want to be Chicken Little screaming the sky was falling. I knew some pieces were falling, and then we had one small glass breakage, and we kind of kept that to ourselves and tried to put up some temporary stuff to prevent it, but then late last year, we had a much larger piece break through fall from the top of the dome through the stained glass oculus and crashed in the middle of the floor 3 floors down during business hours. Well, then I had to be Chicken Little and tell everybody the sky was falling.
Yeah.
So that's just started the whole ball rolling of where we're at. In the meantime, between then and now, I had gotten bids on what it would take to repair the dome. Found out that it's on every kind of historical list you could possibly think of. The people I called from Illinois to Washington, D.C. know about the building, know about the history.
Really?
Came to find out that the interior dome at our courthouse is, as far as anybody can tell, one of the largest in the nation as far as height. Little known facts that people don't know is if you walk into the courthouse and you look up and you see the top of the stained glass, a lot of people think that's the top of the building. It's still over 60 feet from there to the actual exterior dome. So that shotcrete's fallen a long way and picking up some velocity. So being that it's 113 years old, the county board took steps to get this company that we hired to take down the stained glass dome, number it all, crate it all up. Very sophisticated thing. They cleaned up the frame, they painted it, it's in perfect order. And today, as you saw in the Courier and other media posts, New Herald News and such, that it's now a white plastic material that will take high impacts. And they restored this intersection and put clear glass over top of it so that rocks can't break it, just to give the citizens what it would look like once it's totally restored. But the interior dome is not the problem. We were preserving it at that point. It's the exterior that's the real problem.
Now, what is the time frame on that? I had just a little bit of cognizance of this stained glass business. There's an outstanding firm over here in Jacksonville that did Holy Family and other churches around here in town, including your church, dear.
Yes.
And I went over to Jacksonville once with a group from Holy Family and watched them work on. Fascinating how they took all those little bitty pieces out of those church windows and numbered them and, as you mentioned, cleaned them all up and all that. And it was a laborious, time-consuming process. So essentially the same thing being done in a different way for this stained glass in our courthouse dome. And what is the projection for the completion of the time on that? Would be a year or so or more?
Well, from what I'm being told is, if God willing the referendum passes on March 20th, we could possibly go out for bid and have the entire courthouse finished within this calendar year. That's replacing the exterior dome, excuse me, and then restoring. If the referendum passes, the stained glass has already been removed, so that company can then just start on restoration and put everything back in the crates, so when the exterior is done, put the interior stained glass dome back in. So it was quite an amazing thing. I learned a lot of information, thousands of hours of research and emails and phone calls made. And the company we hired, their name came forward at least 24 times as the people. This company, Restoric, out of Chicago, Illinois. As soon as I called Neil, the owner, he had already been in our building, knew about the building, knew about the historic significance, knew about its size, and got the ball rolling on trying to save this fantastic dome. The building's in great shape. I've had structural engineers. All the steel's in good shape. It just time to put shingles, or I tell people all the time, it's time to re-shingle the roof. Only in this case, it's time to just re-roof it, and the copper underneath needs to be replaced. And I'm understanding that the companies I've talked to, they're giving it a 75 to 100-year guarantee if we go back to copper.
That was going to be my question. The preference would be to go back to the copper then?
Honestly, I looked into other materials, but the curvature and the construction of the building, copper is really the only malleable material that you could use to recreate those curves. You couldn't do it in fiberglass, you couldn't do it in steel.
Okay.
So it basically needs to go back in copper.
And we're certainly not talking about $29.95 to do this, are we?
No, we're talking around $3.5 million. But it would have a 75-year warranty, so.
That's, and it's amazing to know that it has lasted as long as it has without major issues, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. Some of the other upgrades we've done at the courthouse is we just recently, 2 years ago, replaced the elevator shaft. That was 40 years past its life expectancy. So we're pretty frugal here in Logan County and getting the best we can out of something.
We try to be frugal here at WLCN 96.3, except for time spent for our sponsors. We don't want to be frugal about them because they're paying for it. So let's go right ahead for our commercial, Mr. H. Right back in the studio here live at WLCN. The program is Viewpoint, of course. Standing in, nobody can substitute for Judith K. Busby. Standing in for Judith Busby is our good friend and associate, friend of many years. In fact, he may take my job if I don't watch what I'm doing up here. Mr. Tim Searby managed to put on an awful lot of wonderful productions for Lincoln and Logan County. Our guest this morning is Kevin Bateman, very involved with our county board, has served as a county board member since 2009, sir?
Yes, sir.
And we appreciate that. You know, serving your community in a civic capacity such as a city council or county board, you just kind of open yourself up for all kinds of headaches. Some are coming, and some come just right out of the blue. And do you get a lot of calls and complaints, Kevin?
A lot. I'm not going to say a lot.
10 a year. 10 a week or anything like that. As much as that.
Yes, mostly animal control, or when I'm supporting something that isn't
fair,
like a wind farm.
Yeah.
I've had threats of burning my house down.
Seriously.
Those kind.
Seriously.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, those kind of things. And usually it's someone that's just very angry in the moment, got false or wrong information either from social media or hearsay or whatever, and usually and most likely once you start explaining truth and facts, they either calm down and understand, or they just stop arguing because
they're overwhelmed.
They're overwhelmed with the fact that they didn't know those laws existed, or they didn't know those rules existed, or whatever. So it's a daunting task, and it's not for everybody. You got to have a thick skin. You got to not worry about what your neighbors think about you. You have to research, and you got to be willing to stand up for yourself and your constituents. I've made a few votes that I'll admit I totally disagreed, but with the people that elected me to office, that was a large conversation had with them on the way they felt, and I tried to sway them my way, but I've made a couple votes where I didn't agree with the way it went, but that's who put me in office, and that's what you got to look at.
And I presume, inevitably, you made some votes when it was second voice. You said, well, maybe I should have voted the other way. You know, that's kind of a
probably a couple
natural thing.
Yeah.
None of us are perfect except Judith K. and Tim.
Right. She would remind you of that.
Yeah. We're pleased to have Tim, and Tim will be with us next week if Mrs. Busby is still not able to make it. And is there a pay for that? Does he get Judy's pay or more?
Probably wants more.
Unfair. Well,
I'll check with Judy.
yeah, right.
He got the free refill of coffee, so that's a plus right
Yeah,
there.
that's exactly right.
Kevin, you said that the building itself is really pretty sound.
Yes.
Other than the roof, of course, right now. But the windows, I've had several people ask me, those were replaced, but do you remember when? And tell me a little bit about what changed physically with those windows when they did it. My understanding was it didn't change the appearance a lot.
It didn't change the appearance at all. I was part of that process with Jan Shoemaker when she was on the board. She was spearheading that. It was a historic preservation type thing. So we took very...
Off we go.
Go right ahead, Kevin.
So we took good...
That's my commanding officer.
We took very pride
Sorry
in
about that, Jim. I forgot to turn it
making
off.
sure the windows looked historically correct. And that leads into right now, if you drive around the courthouse, one of the biggest thorns in my side, being building and grounds chairman, was the window air conditioning units that hang out of that building.
Yeah.
So in turn, I worked with a company, Lincoln Heating and Cooling, great company. They got us what we call PTAC units that fit into it's kind of like when you go to a hotel. That's basically
Sure,
a PTAC
yes.
unit.
Yes.
Heating and cooling, no condensation, doesn't drip, low noise, you set the temperature and you walk away. Well, Marion and his group found us a PTAC unit company that makes a grate on the outside that matches the same color as the windows. So if you walk around the courthouse and you look up, you'll notice that some of those windows look a little different, and that's because the bottom has got the grate that matches the same color as the metal, and that's my being frugal again. Instead of spending all the money at one time, we've developed a plan there at the county building and grounds that as a radiator, its radiator heat goes bad, or if an air conditioning unit goes bad, we then put in one of those PTAC units, and the employees love them because now instead of anybody's been around radiator heat, you're either boiling up or you're freezing. An air conditioner, you got to listen to the noise all the time. Well, now they can just set the temperature at 72 degrees, which is a good 10 degrees warmer than Peggy and I keep our house because we're even more frugal than that. And you just walk away, and the employees love it. So eventually, the entire courthouse will be changed over to those.
Good.
Wonderful, because those areas, they do detract from the, Mark McDonald, Illinois Stories down in Springfield on Channel 8, he makes it a point to, he makes some really interesting interviews, but he's going around to a lot of the courthouses here in the central part of this state. There's some magnificent old buildings in this state of Illinois, and ours is one of them.
Yes.
Yes. And when we have visitors from other places, family members that come, they are amazed at the beauty of our courthouse and how it's been maintained. And that's my understanding is too, we're pretty historically sound in the way anything that we've done to the building to upgrade.
Well, the third floor courtroom, if you've ever been up there, those old wooden folding chairs
Yes.
from the original days, all the doors. Well, recently we had a individual that was in court and he dove through one of the doors. I'll be the first one to admit I wasn't so concerned that he hurt himself that I was that he broke a 112-year-old piece of glass in one of the doors.
Yeah.
So we immediately found a door in a closet way back in the corner that nobody sees and took that glass out and put it back because we want it to all look historically correct. I'm very proud of the building that it is from 1905. It's not the oldest working courthouse in Illinois, but it is in the top 3. And it's just a wonderful building, and it needs to be preserved. The structure is too good not to just walk away. And the amount of money to replace the dome is a drop in the bucket compared to if we had to build a new municipal building
Oh my! Oh yes, you couldn't replicate that at all.
Oh, it'd be 20 million plus.
Some interesting old customs that the technical world took away the need for that. But at the voting time, they always brought out that chalkboard in the center of the rotunda, and they had them all, and people would come, come from all over and stand around the rotunda there and watch the voting results.
Now, I was on that chalkboard last year. My
that
number
right?
wasn't where I wanted it to be.
Was it the same chalkboard?
It's the same chalkboard, yeah.
And when I was a kid, Boy Scout age, they had a shooting range in the basement of the courthouse.
Yes, they did.
Really?
People, I take people down there and show them that.
Is that right?
There's etchings in the concrete when they were pouring the floor. There's a famous one. I'm just going to say what it is, politically correct or not. There is a etching in the concrete that someone took a stick and drew of an Indian shooting arrows at a pig. It's in the floor
Interesting,
on one of the bottoms. When you go up in the dome, I take people up there all the time. They're just amazed. There's signatures up there from 1903 from construction. There's 1912, 1914 of people that's been up in that dome area.
We had some interesting voting tendencies way back in the quote the good old days, and the sheriff and the county treasurer would kind of flip-flop, and Dutch Keefe would be the sheriff, and the next time we come around, Keys would be the sheriff, and Dutch would go to be the county treasurer, and that was just accepted as okay, and we got good service out of them. But that's a long time ago.
But one of the important things I want to discuss is the referendum that's on the ballot. It's a sales tax increase. We at the county board thought that was very important because, let's face it, property taxes in Illinois are outrageous. And the other problem you have with property taxes is it only affects the property tax owner. If you have someone who owns multiple properties, he's being poked a few more times than everybody else. So sales tax made more sense. Sales tax affects everybody. It also brings in money from people traveling through Lincoln and Logan County and with the racetrack and the fair and all that kind of stuff. And we currently have a safety tax on there. It is 1/2 of a penny. All we're asking the voters to do is increase that the other half of a penny. So in explaining it to people, there's the misconception that it's 50 cents. It's not 50 cents. It's 1/2 of 1 penny. It becomes 50 cents if you're buying $100 worth of stuff. But it's not on food, it's not on medicine, it's just on consumables. So we felt, the county board did, that was the easiest burden to pass on to generate the kind of money we need for the courthouse and the safety complex. This money can only be used for public safety purposes. So it's the courthouse, it's the safety complex, and those kind of things. It's not for roads and bridges or anything like that. It's for public safety.
Everyone knows we need roads and bridges. I want to emphasize what I think is a very, very important point, Mr. Bateman. And I heard you say that what it really amounts to is 50 cents on $100.
Correct. So if you bought $100
in and
worth
of itself, that's
consumables,
not a heck of a lot of money.
No, it is not. It is. If you bought one item that cost $100, it would increase that item by 50 cents. I was stopped at a local grocery store one day, and someone didn't understand it and went on about the price, and I had several groceries in my cart, and I had some consumable products, motor oil and stuff like that in there, and I explained to them, I said, the only thing that would be this tax affects is that motor oil and shaving cream and those kind of things. It doesn't affect medicine, and it doesn't affect food. So it would be on gasoline and consumables at the you would buy at the gas station and stuff like that. So it's a very easy burden to take on yourself for a very important cause. Again, to build a new building would just be outrageous, and the safety complex needs to be upgraded.
Yeah, let's talk about that just a minute, Mr. Bateman. it's my understanding, and yours too, Tim, I'm certain, that we're really overcrowded at what we call quickly the county jail safety complex, but it's our county jail, what we all knew it to be. Daily, we have prisoners in there, we don't know what the heck to do with them. And it's not just a little thing, it's by a large increment as far as I understand it. Am I correct in that?
Yes, we've been running at capacity for a very long time. It's very much needed. From my conversations with the sheriff and some other people, there's things changing at the state Illinois level that will also dictate how many cells and people we house in our jail. So it is a much needed thing that again, it was one of those things built decades ago that served its purpose decades ago. It's now time to upgrade it. Luckily for us here at Logan County, we own the land. It's not like we have to go buy a new piece of land and start over. From what I understand in my conversations, and I'll admit I'm more focused on the courthouse, but it's an expansion of the safety complex that we have for safety purposes. You have an overcrowded jail, you're asking for the fights to break out and those kind of things. Nobody should put yourself through that if you're a jailer or a deputy or something like that. And you also need to make the people that are there as comfortable as possible for their incarceration time that they're there. And those are the kind of things that the public safety tax would be used for. So it would be a long-term investment to better the community.
I think very few people probably know this. I lived in jail for 8 years. My father was sheriff of Edwards County, and we literally lived. Our residence was attached to the cells.
And your mother was the cook.
And my mother was the cook, and a darn good cook. And but as we just even living there saw the need to upgrade those facilities for safety, and that's one of the issues too. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean the more people you put in a cell, the more irritable they get. So it's just a fact of life. I'm not going to hide the conversation. That's what it boils down to. You'll have the people that say, "Hey, well, they're in jail." Okay, but that doesn't mean that they, you pack them in there like sardines. And these aren't, there's a lot of people in our county jail that are not what I call violent criminals. They've made their mistake. They're serving their time, and it's just overcrowded. More and more people are being sentenced to those kind of things, and you can only house so many. And it goes from the county jail on up. Let's face it, the prison system in Illinois has been overcrowded for decades, and so it's one of those trickle down or trickle up effects, whichever one you want. It's just much needed, and it's time to do it. And the sales tax is an easy burden to bear to generate the money we would need to pay for those things. Because
again, if you have $50 worth of merchandise, consumable merchandise, as you say, not prescriptions, not groceries or anything like that, consumable products. If you bought $100 worth, your tax is going to be 50 cents.
Correct. Your sales tax would only
put it
go
like
50
that,
cents.
That really makes it doable. I mean, that's just about as basic as it gets.
You got people paying $9 coffees, 50 cents for a few consumable items on $100 is not much money.
Yeah.
And it spreads the burden around as thin as we could possibly spread it. Again, a property tax is not the way to go. So I hope the citizens see that. I'm pushing for it and talking to everybody I can about it. I hope everybody else spreads the word about it. Talk to both sheriff candidates about it, making sure they spreading the word around. It's just something that has to be done. People don't complain when their cable bill or whatever goes up. This is a very much needed thing in this county, and that's the lightest way to bear the burden.
Tim and I would like to talk about the county board per se. You have 12, I'm just looking at the, I'm not this smart, I don't remember. I looked at the list. You have 12 members, is that
Yes.
correct, sir? Okay, and you're broken down, each of you have a sphere of responsibilities, building
Correct.
grounds and so forth and so forth. Could you explain how that works, Mr. Bateman?
The county board works on a committee structure. It works very well for us. I chair the Building and Grounds Committee, and I chair the Transportation Committee. I'm co-chair on a couple other committees. There's usually 6 people in a committee. Several years ago, the county board and myself all went into a discussion again. Luckily for us, we're a bunch of very frugal people on the county board. Instead of spreading out meetings over time, we have developed a plan to where, for instance, we get paid a per diem. That's $60 per meeting. It's a one-time thing. So I'm chairman of Building and Grounds and Transportation. Building and Grounds, Transportation meet on the same night. So I don't get paid $60 twice. We made it so that we're at what I tell everybody, we stack meetings on top of each other to make sure the taxpayers are getting their best bang for their buck for the people elected to work for them. There's nights we have 4 and 5 committees meet on the same night, and a lot of those people are on the same committees. Every time we have to have a special meeting, we always try to arrange it so that it's on either before or just right after another meeting for the same reason. So it's a good group of 12 people that are very conscientious about taxpayer dollars. Again, we get the complaints that we spend money, but once you explain why you spent the money and how it's being spent and the reasons it's being spent, I've been very successful in explaining to people why it is what it is and how we do what we do, and that's just what you take on as an elected official, the good with the bad. And as my wife said when she was in here, I spend taxpayer money like it's my own money. Do I spend money? Yes, I do, but I make sure I get the best bang for the buck and it's spent wisely. So
Mr. Searby, do you have any follow-up questions that you'd like to follow through on, sir?
I'd just like to follow up with the dome.
okay.
And so, honestly, tell us again, I think I missed a little bit of that. If it could happen, what kind of a time frame are we talking about as far as you think maybe getting it finished and safely in place? And
Well, as the chairman of Building and Grounds, I've spent most of the last 6 months making phone calls, emails, and acquisitions about contractors and structural engineers and those kind of things. I'm waiting for the results of the March 20th election. Once that get in place, I can tell you I'm going to fast track go out for bids, proposal, try to get the bids back as fast as we possibly can. I have all the information put together, so it's not like I got to spend 6 months trying to gather information to go out for proposal. Working with companies that specialize in these kind of things, because let's face it, this is a specialized product. This isn't something that just anybody can do. Scaffolding companies and those kind of things. So I'm prepared to start moving forward, and I've been told that if things move smoothly, we could possibly get it done in 2018. So it will dramatically change the landscape of Logan County. We've already done a wind study on the roof. We thought we could scaffold a quarter section of a time, basically around each clock face. It's too windy up there, so we're going to scaffold the whole roof when possibly get it done. And it looks like we'd probably go back into copper. So.
And does that affect the use of the building while that's being done?
Should not whatsoever. The taking down the courthouse dome, we worked with the courts and made sure we did that in off jury trial weeks. So I try to work with everybody involved to make sure everything is as smooth as possible.
Let's quickly go with the worst-case scenario. If the referendum fails, what then do we do, sir?
Buckets and tarps.
That's a pretty direct answer. That's a pretty direct answer.
It is leaking. It is leaking and falling it's not falling in, it is leaking.
But you can stand there and wring your hands all day and not do something about it, and as you say, you end up with buckets and tarps.
If the citizens do not pass it and it gets worse and worse, we will be forced then to do something drastic, which will cost millions more than just putting another roof on the dome.
You can't put a Band-Aid up there.
Nope. It is a very good building. We have Wi-Fi. We have all the cabling we need. There's a lot of history there. We work very diligently to make it very comfortable for everybody that comes in. The elevators are repaired and lighting and such like that. It's just very important.
And if I may, on a closing note, Tim, and I think you would agree with this, we have some really good people employed under that courthouse dome. From the bottom to the top, we have some excellent. We're served well by our folks in the courthouse.
Very long time dedicated people that are there more than the retiring county clerk. She takes her job very seriously, but she goes well beyond the county clerk role.
It was made it a point to do that from day one. Yeah, we always try to close with I always go to a place on the internet called Brainy Quote. This isn't so brainy. This is just this is a no-brainer, actually. Who made this statement? Some sort of a quote. I don't know, but it's about as basic as it gets. And they said, I happen to be one who believes very strongly that the state and local governments have their proper roles. Well done. Thank you, Kevin Bateman, for being with us today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for having me.